Hello, and welcome to the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker. This podcast will show you how to achieve FI through entrepreneurial pursuits by developing a well-calibrated and thought-out plan for risk management so that you can maximize the rewards.
Hosted by certified financial planner, enrolled agent, and serial entrepreneur Ben Martinek, this is the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker.
The information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of the content is presented as investment advice. Consult your financial professional before acting on any of the information presented in this show. Hello and welcome, everybody. It's good to have you again. This is the start off of Season 2 here with the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker. We are so excited. We've made it through Season 1. We've got about 20 episodes under our belt, and Andrew and I are just completely stoked. Andrew's joining me today, everyone, to discuss not only our topic, but to continue on. It's just great. We're getting awesome feedback from our listeners, and we're seeing that people just simply love the topic and love our show. That's great. You're in the right spot, and we're looking to deliver. So, Andrew, before we get too far underway, why don't you introduce yourself and say hi to everyone?
Yeah, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1. I'm Andrew. I'm Ben's wingman, here to help out and provide some color and hopefully a couple of useful insights for everyone as far as entrepreneurship and financial independence goes. Also a CFP now. That happened last year for me. I got my experience requirement. Yes.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Super excited about that. So yeah, really just happy to be here and happy to be moving forward. Season 2. It's amazing.
What were some of the highlights for you, Andrew, on the last season? What stands out?
I actually really love episode 18. Episode 18, we played with the idea of franchising as a business for an entrepreneurial pursuit. And then oddly enough, just a couple weeks after we had recorded that, we had a meeting with a client and they had some experience with franchising it as well. And it really just struck home, to me at least, that is a really valid way to get into entrepreneurship if it appeals to you. So if you're interested in that at all, I'd say definitely go check out episode 18 from Season 1 and listen a little bit more about that.
For sure. Yeah, I love franchising. Definitely a valid option. Something we'll have to explore this season as we get underway is the possibility of maybe buying a blog or, buying, like franchising is about buying businesses that are either, up and running or going along, or they've got systems and processes in place. So a lot of legwork's taken out. Something we've recently come across is the possibility of buying a blog that's already monetizing and is producing cash flow. And it's a matter of obviously coming up with money to purchase it, but then also to convert that into monthly cash flow. Love the idea of this. We'll have to explore whether or not we think it's a good move. But I think, if you're looking for other ways to get a shortcut into the entrepreneurial space, blogging is fun. But as I look back at the last season, one of the things that sticks out to me is really our focus on the personality types of people, of team members, but also of, the so-and-so entrepreneur. I just enjoyed that episode. I suppose it was fun to hash that out with my wife, Deb. Just as a reminder, our takeaway from there is there's certainly characteristic traits as shown, case specific to the entrepreneur that are certainly worth having and are very relevant for our conversation today, which is ultimately what's it like to be an entrepreneur. But, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, quote unquote, personality wise in order to still succeed as an entrepreneur. But there are going to be certain characteristics that you need. And we want to explore and delve into those characteristics. Before we do, we want to tease you a little bit and just let you know too about this second season. Pretty excited about this. So a dozen or so folks who are going to be coming on the show that we're going to interview. So they are entrepreneurs, and they're either at various stages in their business. They just started in the first year or two, so we'll get a chance to see what life is like, as an entrepreneur in the first stages. We're going to get people who are further along, more successful. Have got about 10 years under their belt. And then we're hoping to get a few folks who have made ultimately a career and have a full-blown business. So that whole variety, plus we're thinking of having a family-owned business that's got multi-generational ownership going on from one generation to the next. It's going to be super fun to talk about. And then last but not least, we've had someone reach out to us who writes to entrepreneurs, has books on that. He's a New York Times best-selling author. Won't tell you who it is quite yet because I want to tease you. But he's wanting to come on the show and tell us a little bit about his work and his latest book. Just super excited about the opportunity that's going to provide. So it's going to be a great season. Our focus this season is going to be on interviewing entrepreneurs, not just talking about this, but getting in the trenches with people who are running their own businesses. Super fun. If you're wanting to become an entrepreneur, you've come to the right place. But Andrew, as we move along here, what are some comments or thoughts that you have about entrepreneurship in our current times? Do you think it's easier or more difficult as we stand today to be an entrepreneur than it was in times past?
I'd have to say, I believe that now, this current generation, the time that we're in now, it's one of the more accessible things to do, right? It seems like everyone that you talk to has a side hustle, a plan for one, or is just a full blown entrepreneur. The idea of a digital nomad, as you kind of brought up, that idea of going out and purchasing a website, purchasing a blog, purchasing a space in the virtual, atmosphere. It's totally new, right? And there's the barrier to entry has decreased substantially as far as starting a business. You could start a business with a couple $1,000s in your basement and get something going and allow it to grow. And I don't know if that's really happened as much in the past. That is really exciting. And it really just allows people to have a lot more control over their lives. And it allows people to look at themselves and say, what are my skills? What are my passions? What am I excited about? And what do I have to offer other people that can maybe make me happy and make them happy? And at the end of the day, hey, make a buck off of it too.
Yeah, and that's something. It's so funny you were saying, never there been a time that someone could spend a few $1,000s to start a business in their basement. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's exactly that's exactly what I've done. Quite literally. Oh, folks, if you could have seen us in the early days, we were like, I mean, now we have a nice backdrop and a very dedicated office space that it's quite lovely. But in the early days, like I was meeting, it was clearly in the basement of a living room space. But there you go. I mean, it was really starting from nothing, and it was with just a handful of $1,000. It was more than just a couple, but it wasn't a ton of money, and we got things rolling. I think you're right, Andrew. The barrier to entry, like getting this along, if you want to be a business owner, I don't know if the times could, I mean, could it get even better? Like, what more could be done for somebody to make it an even easier access point to step into being entrepreneurship? Anything come to mind?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the things that's happening is that it is becoming a much more accepted form and pursuit of sustenance and employment. So now there's mastermind groups. There's this, you alluded to the guy, he's a bestseller, really marketing just to entrepreneurs. Like there's a community now around it. You're not as much alone out there. You can connect with other people and learn from other people. And you don't, again, like we said, with the franchising, with buying internet, you don't have to start from nothing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you want to do this. You can really go out and say, all right, what are these other people doing? What's going to work? And really, I think also the amount of information that is out there to know what works and what doesn't work is only growing, is only becoming more accessible. So I think that as the next 10, 20, 30 years goes on, that's only going to continue to accelerate.
For sure. Yeah. So even more support. No, I think I concur. Like if you want to be an entrepreneur, there is never really a better time for you to do it. Let's go ahead and get you going down this pathway. It's been awesome. I mean, it has its good days and its bad days, but I love being an entrepreneur, and it's been great fun. And as you see the successes, and I've seen successes in the business, it's the sort of stuff is like we need to go get a cigar out and a glass of whiskey or scotch or whatever your
Bourbon, please.
beverage of choice, bourbon. Yeah, there you go. It's time to go celebrate because this is pretty stinking cool and awesome, right?
Well,
Let's make it happen.
and that's the thing. That satisfaction, I don't think I've never done the suit and
Yeah,
tie thing. Obviously, very obvious from anyone that's ever met me. But I do not think that you're going to find that same kind of satisfaction, because when things go well in a small business, when things go well in your own business, and you know that you did that, right? And for me, the way I'm wired, that's hugely satisfying. Like I work with Ben, I work for Ben. It is Ben's business, but at the end of the day, I take a lot of pride in it. I take a lot of ownership in it. And for me, being a part of that kind of small business is hugely satisfying. And I'm like Ben, I wouldn't trade it.
well, I mean that's great. Well, there's one of the rewards we could talk about. What's it like to be an entrepreneur? So you have the immediacy of the reward in your work. I mean, that's something that could just simply get muted or lost in a large corporate setting. Perhaps you're in a cubicle, and it just feels like it's a bit of drudgery. You keep showing up and you do your work, and there's no connection to the satisfaction or the solution or how the company is winning. And the only way that you see any benefit from that maybe is that paycheck that comes home, and perhaps if all goes well, you get a raise or a bonus. And, those are worthwhile things. We have plenty of clients who work in the corporate space, and, those bonuses are meaningful and they're happy to get them. And, they celebrate them too. So I mean, it's not like there is an opportunity for celebration.
Yeah, we've seen a few bonuses that I would not have minded working a corporate job to
For
be
sure.
part
Yeah. I was
of.
like, dang, good for you. That's awesome. That's a big bonus. So it does happen in the corporate setting too, for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's something to be said when you see successes in your own business. And to date, I suppose it's worth sharing, that I haven't seen bonuses coming home quite like I've seen some of my clients receive. But you can still get the same degree of satisfaction and happiness and say, hey, we're celebrating in these wins. They're more meaningful, I think. I think they're for you. What do you think, Andrew? I mean, we have this episode. It's what's it like to be an entrepreneur? We have a question here of maybe, what does it take? But as you're kicking this around, I certainly have a few ideas to share. But what do you think? I mean, what's it like to be an entrepreneur? If someone is thinking about doing this, what's day one looking like when you wake up and say, I've started my own business?
It's funny. We always prepare an outline for this, a loose outline, and then we chat a little bit before the show. And Ben asked me this question before the show, and I just kind of kicked around in my head for a minute. I said something that wasn't even on the outline, and I prepared the outline. So it's like, but for me, it was independence, the ability to kind of be out on an island by yourself. You're going to spend a lot of time with yourself. We spend a lot of time. Ben was in the basement. I've been in basements or in restaurants and bars all alone. You're in the kitchen all day, talking to no one. You've got to have that ability to self motivate, to have confidence in yourself, to make choices when you don't have clear data. You've got to have an inner resilience and an inner kind of fire, because no one's going to drive you, right? No one's behind you with the whip. No one's in front of you with the carrot. You are the whole show. So being out on an island cannot scare you. You've got to be all right with being with yourself and by yourself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think without question, that's just spot on. And truthfully, it's the first thing that comes to mind for me as well. Look, I got support when I started the businesses. So I wasn't completely on my own. I wasn't completely without help. I mean, you do need support. You do need help. It is a pretty daunting task to get a business up and running. So I wouldn't want to advocate that you do it completely on your own. I think that would probably be a mistake. But the reality is you're going to spend a lot of time by yourself, and you're going to be the one making those decisions. You have to call the shots, and you have to make decisions. Like, you got to take action, and things need to get done. I think if you're given to reflection, there's going to be a struggle, as an entrepreneur, because you just you'll have analysis paralysis. You'll spend too much time thinking about what you ought to do or considering it, but not actually waking up and pushing that deadline and saying, this has got to get done. This has got to get done today. There has to be an internal control, a willingness to be really individualistic and be fine working by yourself and carrying things by yourself, because there isn't going to be anyone overseeing or watching you by and large. I mean, there are different circumstances, different degrees of support, different degrees of help, depending on industries. I mean, I wouldn't want to suggest that you couldn't get any support at all. But, if you're definitely of a personality bent where you like, a lot of detail, like a lot of systems, you like a lot of processes, you like protocol, you like, not to say it in a pejorative way, but you like to have your hand held. Yeah, becoming an entrepreneur is probably not going to work for you. Presumably, you're probably not even listening to this podcast. Perhaps we're stating a bit of the obvious, but yeah, I mean, it's just not going to work, right? You're not going to get your hand held as an entrepreneur. It's really quite the opposite, and you have to be okay with that. So, what are some characteristics, as you think, Andrew, of if you're not getting your hand held, kind of use that as kind of the contrast to being an entrepreneur? What is some of the characteristics, outside of just being a self-starter or internal motivator? What else do you think you need to have to make entrepreneurship work for you?
I think definitely also you need to have curiosity and the ability to learn, because there's so many things that you don't know as you get into all this. You are, as Ben said, going to be wearing all the hats. You're going to need to be able to do a number of different things. And surely you don't know what you don't know, of course, when you start the business. So you've got to be able to go out there, find information, assimilate it. And then also, I think the other side of that is having the knowledge to know what you're just not good at, right? So not only the curiosity to learn, but also the ability to know what you can't learn. know what's just really outside of your realm of ability, and then hopefully the ability to find that and hire that out. And for me, that also comes into that support idea. When I first talked about being out on an island, I wasn't totally talking about that you had to be totally alone, totally lonely in this pursuit. Obviously, you are going to have other people around you, right? But if it's your business, if it's your baby, the people that are around you, the support people, they're not going to make those decisions for you. At a certain point, like Ben said, you're going to have to work around the idea of analysis paralysis. So, however you get around that is another thing. If you got to put all your ideas in the hat at the end of the day and just pick one out and say, all right, that's what I'm going with, and figure out how to make it work. Again, that comes back into the learning. Well, that's just what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, being willing to adapt, to assimilate, to learn new information, and I think willing to take that step into the unknown and, recognize that I don't maybe really know what I'm doing. Like, I think a lot of entrepreneurship is a lot of recognition. Like, I don't know if I know what I'm doing, but that's okay. Like, you're comfortable, you're confident with that. I can just, it's a bit of like voyaging, or what's the term for this? Self-seeking, like self-exploring. There's a term where you're wayfinding. This is the term I was seeking for. Like, it's wayfinding. A lot of entrepreneurship is wayfinding. Like, I don't know the way, and there isn't a way laid out for me. I'm kind of in this jungle or this desert or these woods or whatever, and it's just not very clear which way to go. Maybe you're out in the backcountry, but you're okay with that. You've got, signs, you've got principles, you got things to go by. If you're out in the backcountry, follow streams or look for other indicators, or the sun or the North Star, or what have you. Similar things take place, I think, within entrepreneurship, and that could be just these larger organizations, perhaps. But the point being is you're okay being on your own, wayfinding. That does have to be something that, for the most part, doesn't overwhelm you. I mean, there are days which it is overwhelming and it is scary. And so I think, one thing that Andrew has here in our notes that I'm glad he's got is, look, I mean, another part of being an entrepreneur is he has bravery. I must say, I prefer the term courage instead. That's the same thing, obviously, but yeah, it takes courage. I mean, it's scary stuff, and you've got to be okay with confronting that scariness, or just, working, living with it, and not letting it keep you from taking action. What are your thoughts on courage? How important or how high does this rank in your mind?
Well, I don't want to talk about courage. I like this wayfind.
Oh, you want to go back to a
We can touch
wayfinder?
upon it.
Okay.
But yeah. I want to dig into that a little bit. So something that you said, like you were like, when you're doing this wayfinding and you're on your own in the business, you've got these markers, right? So we could compare them maybe to the stars. Like, so in your opinion, what are kind of like, I guess in entrepreneurship, it could be like the guiding principles or something like that. But in your opinion, if you were, continue on the wayfinding symbolism or metaphor, there we go. So it's a late night for me. What are the markers that are guiding you as you are kind of continuing without really knowing the end destination? What has guided you on your journey?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, more specific to my journey, and not maybe to torture this analogy too much, but I'd like to go back to it. I joined up as part of a professional association, in which part of the roles of the association is to help financial advisors specifically start and run their own practice. So, you know, clearly joining up with them and working with them to take care of a various number of tasks that we needed to get done to get started was a huge help, is still a huge help. And they started to put the pieces in place, so I didn't have to quite figure it all out. But they're not meeting with you every day. It's not like you have a morning call, or you don't even have a weekly call, and maybe it's at best just once every couple of months you check in with somebody. So even just learning all their resources and figuring out what they have, and still vetting all the possibilities, like there's just a lot of screening that is taking place regardless. Even if you do get assistance, for the most part, there's different entry points into entrepreneurship, but many times this isn't fully ready made. You have to make a lot of decisions, even from the very get go, to decide or determine, what this business is going to be, what's it going to look like. You're still dealing with the unknown. You're still uncertain, even in this structure, even with all this assistance. And honestly, you got to be willing to make mistakes and screw up and take a chance. And you got to be willing to take chances. You got to be willing to give something a shot and then see where it goes and what happens with it. And maybe it doesn't turn out, and be okay with that. Be okay with the fact that I gave something a shot and it didn't work out the way I thought it was going to, because there's going to be plenty of that happening. Broader principles. I mean, really have to spend some time and really dig into this wayfinding.
I think that's an episode.
Yeah, yeah, I love the idea of it. What's wayfinding, or what are types of wayfinding? But like something that comes to me to go back to our analogy is like, don't eat the red berries, right? Don't.
Don't. So whatever business that you're in, you're going to have your particular red berries.
Yeah,
And like when we started the brewery and everything, we knew like, all right, these are some of the things. And I think it really speaks to having your why, right? So in those early days, especially when you're not really sure what you're doing, you're not really sure where you're going, having your principles, having your core set of values, those are your north stars and your constellations, so to speak. You know why you're here, you know why you're doing it, you know what you want out of it. You may not know how you're going to get there, I think, but as long as you know what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, then I think it helps you move forward. And to be honest, I think having that why allows you to be more brave, right? And for me, a lot of the bravery of it is the ability to say to yourself, I might fail. It's a very real possibility. And if I do fail, that's okay, because I do know my why. I do know what I was trying to achieve and accomplish and get for myself and my family, maybe, and what I wanted to put out there for people. And so that, I think, also gives you the courage to move forward in uncertainty.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, what would be great, Andrew, I think we should delve into would be just like, what are survival skills? Because if we're going to continue to use this analogy of being in the backcountry and wayfinding, it's, what are the broader survival skills to make sure that you don't kill yourself, quite frankly,
On a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the day-to-day like? What do you need to be able to do every day? And of course, different businesses, they have a different day-to-day. So I'm not going to teach you how to chop onions if you're an accountant, right? Which is very real. I only have two analogies in my pocket, right? I'm all cooking, you're all sailing, right?
Yeah, it works for me. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to work on that. So like every job varies, right? So there's different things you need to do every day, but there are similar activities that you're going to engage in every day. And I think definitely one of the most critical for an entrepreneur is every day, if you're not thinking about, at least, if not actively engaged in marketing and branding, you are not going to survive.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, so what are some of the things that you have to do on a daily basis? Like, you wake up Monday morning, you've decided to be an entrepreneur. What's the first thing you get to do? And hopefully you've already got this, quite frankly. But if you don't, you better get your sales funnel filling up, and you got people who are interested in your service or your product. And if they're not already interested, you're working to get them interested, because you're not going to be in business for very long if you're not closing any business. And you got to close business with people who want to do business with you and who think, oh, what you offer to them is the solution they've come to, or it's the solution to the problem they're having. Get to work on finding people who want to do business with you. Marketing, sales, if you're not familiar with that's that whole branch. They're two different components. We'll save going into the details of that for another time. But marketing and sales is all about filling up that line of business, and you want people standing a mile deep, waiting to work with you, because that's what's really going to secure your future as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I really want to just add one thing to that. Whereas you not only do you have to make the sale with those people, not only do you have to find those people and sell to those people, you need to find a way to do it in such a manner that they are so happy with what you have done to them that they're going to go and tell someone. Because it does you no good to make the sale once and have to go out and kill it again, right? You can't kill one line. You got to have them just bringing people to the water hole for you.
Yeah, word of mouth referrals, without question, are one of the most powerful ways to continue and grow your business. And you get word of mouth referrals by crushing it, by killing it, by having people just completely stoked with what it is that you were able to do for them. So if you're going to go out on your own, I think one of the things I would suggest, as an entrepreneur, it's not uncommon with people. This is myself included in this. Start their own business because they want some autonomy. They want to be in charge. They want to be their own boss. They don't want someone necessarily over them, or they want at least the opportunity to kind of prove to themselves whether or not they can do it. But then there tends to be, certainly in the early stages, a focus on just simply completing the product or service, that you're running your business in. Maybe it's pie making, maybe it's fixing up bicycles, maybe it's running a restaurant or doing financial advisory services like we do. And so you do the business, you do that service because that's what you like, that's what you want to do, and you wanted maybe greater control or flexibility in that than what you previously had or currently have with your present employer. But the challenge is, as a business owner, for the most part, we've seen exceptions to this, but generally speaking, you don't just simply do the project and service any longer if you're an entrepreneur. You now need to take on the role of operations in your business, and you need to take on the role of marketing and sales. And both of those other tasks will dominate just as much or maybe even more of your time than, simply completing the product or service that people are ultimately transacting or pursuing with you. So you have to be okay with these other components, marketing and sales again, or or operations. And operations can just tends to be paperwork and the busyness of running a business, closing, billing and contracts, and yeah, it tends to be endless, but it's there. It's what the whole world runs on, whether it's good or bad. The world runs on paperwork, and so if you're going to run a business, you're going to have your fair share of paperwork, regardless of what business that is. And then you got to get people who want to do business with you, and that's the pipeline piece. And so you're not just going to do your product or service. Like if you're really going to go out on your own, unless you're a bit of a rare exception.
I'd say maybe you'll get to do your product or service 25% of the time, and the other 75% you're going to be doing the work that allows you to do the work.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair conclusion. That rings certainly true in my own experience. Truly, if all you want to do is your product and service, don't become an entrepreneur
Go get a job in a factory.
or some other. Go,
That's the only way you're ever going to do what you want to do all day, every day, right? If you want to go be a woodworker, go be a
yeah,
woodworker, but work for someone else to do it. You want to own your own woodworking shop? You're going to be hiring a
that's
woodworker.
exactly it. Yeah. No, I think if we were to wrap this up and start to bring some concluding comments, I think aspirationally, entrepreneurship tends to migrate where you, as the business owner, become and are, and really from the day one, you are this, but you won't necessarily see yourself this way from day one, but you are the CEO of your company. And so, if you don't have aspirations in some part to eventually be a CEO, a chief executive officer, then you should reconsider entrepreneurship, because you will naturally, as your business takes off and grows and develops, and you need staff and support, your role becomes more and more of that of as the CEO. It ceases to be less and less that of the front lines, rank and file, as they call it, person who's doing the actual work or service. If all you want to do is the rank and file work, and you're just currently dissatisfied, and this issue isn't the solution here is not to go become an entrepreneur. The solution is just go find another job. You're working for the wrong company. We're working in the
Yeah.
wrong spot. Maybe you need a change or something.
Yeah, you wind up becoming what you sought to escape.
Yeah. Don't become an entrepreneur. But starting your own business is not the solution in that side.
It's not.
No, you don't want to be one.
If you're looking to escape the 9 to
No.
5 and like find more creativity in your job, opening your own shop is maybe not the right choice, which is so funny because you're going to start it, you're going to say, "Oh, I've got all the control, I've got all the creativity, I can do whatever I want." And then once you get a little bit of success, and as that success grows, it's going to pull you further and further and further away from being able to just run it. Because if it's ever going to grow to the point where it can really sustain you, it's going to have to be of a size that it's going to require oversight. So unless you're going to also maybe we're missing the point. Maybe we're missing the point really, whereas you just hire the CEO.
Sure.
You're like, look, I am really good at making widgets, but I have no desire to know how to sell a widget. You just tell you, I'm going to hire you. You're going to tell me what to do.
No, I mean there could be. That's a fair point. I'm glad you turned that around and put it the other way. I mean, there are CEOs out there, for hire who will work for you as a company. I think, admittedly, they're not going to work for little. So you're gonna have to get your business pretty far away.
You better be selling a lot of widgets already to hire a CEO to control you. But
And then how much do you, if you have been previously functioning as the CEO, how much do you want to go and hand that off now to the to the other person?
yeah,
I I don't think that would be an easy sell for most entrepreneurs once they've gotten to the point where they could hire that CEO. But that legitimately is a possibility. I mean that's one of the beautiful things about really owning and running your own business is, look, I mean it's what I love about this, because we do a lot of financial planning, financial advising, so we're clearly tied up with stocks and shares of company. But what's great about starting your own business, your own company, is, look, you own all the shares. You're the full shareholder. So I love it. I mean, it's your company. You get to decide what comes of it. So that's some of the beauty and the greatness of being an entrepreneur. But heck yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, folks. A lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of time put in. And I do think, generally speaking, maybe with few exceptions, we haven't talked about those exceptions. Maybe we save them for another time. But with few exceptions, you're eventually going to become the CEO of this thing. And so, do you have aspirations to be a CEO, of your own company? If you do, by all means, yeah, go become an entrepreneur. That's, this is going to be great for you. From day one, you're going to be CEO. Whether you fully see it or it feels like it's worthwhile, maybe it's
Yeah,
not a title
get yourself a
worth
mug,
having.
because that's all
Yeah,
that's
there
all
you
it's
go.
really going to mean in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, good for you. You're the
Print up those
CEO of
business
whatever.
cards. It says right, and see if you can even
Yeah,
manage to hand them all out.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, hey, good, take good notes. Someone's got to keep track of your minutes in your meetings with yourself. Yeah, so
As you shave in the mirror in the mornings.
yeah, that's right. Hey, but man, you're your own CEO. So hey, some days that's all you got to live on. So hey, if that's what motivates you and gets you going, yeah, maybe, I think you got what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So, and the rest is kind of history, as they say, right? I mean, if you can accomplish, or if you do have some of these basic characteristic traits, that is all that you may need to make this happen. So, I don't want to make it too big of out of a deal than what it is. I mean, a lot of it's just deciding one day that we're going to do it, and I think maybe to put a wrap on it, as long as you're comfortable with wayfinding, perhaps it's going to be our new theme, Andrew. As long as you're comfortable with wayfinding, like there you go, you'll make it work. You'll figure it
Yeah.
out. Cool. Well, Andrew, you got any closing comments
No,
for
it's
us?
good. I think if you enjoy laughing at your own jokes at the dinner table, you may have what it takes.
There you go. Yeah, you'll be a good dad.
Yeah.
You'll be a good dad at that point.
I only became a dad for the jokes, really.
Yeah, and he gives this to us. He
Yeah.
gets it. Well, I'm going to end with this quote. But Winston Churchill once said that ultimately success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. So let's keep that in mind, folks. Again, Winston Churchill says success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Boy, that resonated with me. I hope it resonates with you, that there's a lot of truth to that. So, well, continue to tune in, everybody. We've got more great shows coming your way, a lot more interviews with entrepreneurs in the trenches. And if you've loved what we've done so far, you're going to love what we're going to continue to do next. We've got great plans for you. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you around next time. Thanks for listening. I hope you've had as much fun as we did. If you'd like to learn more about any of the subjects we spoke about, please visit our website for show notes, links, and more. Hit like, subscribe, or whatever button you've got in front of you to show some love. Remember, the information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Remember what Teddy Roosevelt said about the person who strives greatly. If he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Until next time, keep striving.
Thanks again, and be well.